Isn't it incredible that the music industry always gives you something to talk about? Alright, so to understand how absurd this whole merchandising fee slash crisis situation has become, we have to look at some numbers first, and then I am going to highlight one specific situation and occasion that has occurred that has highlighted this issue to absolutely new levels. Historically, venues took a 10 to 15% cut if they provided a vendor and also point-of-sale equipment for the bands to actually handle their merchandise. Nowadays, however, the venues regularly demand a 15 up to a 30, yes, I said 30, this is talking from personal experience, gross concessions, often even taking a cut when the band is using their own crew, their own table, and their own equipment. And this is actually one of the modern traps of this whole thing. Venues take their cut after gross revenue, not net profit. After subtracting the cost of goods sold, let's say $12 to $15 per shirt, printing, shipping, and credit card processing fees, a 20% gross cut can actually wipe out 50 to 70% of an artist's profit per item. And in addition to that, there's also a stacking effect to this whole situation. In international markets, in this case, specifically Europe, bands will face a double hit. Let's say the venue is concession 15 to 25%. The value-added tax, VAT or IVA, is an additional 19 to 24%. So total loss can range anywhere from 37 to over 47% before manufacturing costs are factored in. And just to put this a little bit more into the real world and make it more understandable, a band needs approximately 250 to 300,000 Spotify streams to match the net profit of selling approximately 35 to 45 t-shirts. So when venues tax the merch this way, they destroy the last financial bridge between the fans and the touring musicians. And now, coming back to the initial point, to understand the modern repercussions of this situation, we have to look at a single night in Milan, Italy. The band in question that I'm going to be talking about is Kanonenfieber, a German black and death metal band who are famous for their relentless touring, meticulous historical themes, and a pretty loyal and vocal fan base. On their European run, they pulled into Alcatraz, one of the most famous and established venues in Milan. Basically a room that has already hosted everyone from Nightwish to Megadeth. But when the guys started setting up their merch table, they were not greeted by a partner in music. They were handed a financial ransom note. So here's what the venue and their local concessionaries have demanded. First of all, a 25% gross cut on every shirt, hoodie, vinyl record, CD sold, you name it. Not 25% of the profit, mind you, 25% of everything that the fan hands over. The second layer on top of that is Italy's IVA, their value-added tax. And after doing some quick math, before Kanonenfieber pays a single dollar for the physical t-shirt, before they pay the screen printer, the shipping, and the tour manager or their merchandise person to sit at the table for 8 hours, 47% of the gross price was already gone. Nearly half of the money spent by a fan at that table was already sucked out of the room before the band has touched a single cent. So when a venue backs you into a corner like that, as a touring musician you have basically two options, and both of those options are pretty terrible. Number one, you raise your prices unreasonably. You take a shirt that you normally sell for 35 euros and you sell it for 55 or 60. So you're forcing your local fans, who already paid for the concert ticket, local parking, and the overpriced drinks, because let's face it, that's just an element of existing in the industry now, to subsidize everybody else's greed. In other words, you become the bad guy. Option number two is you keep prices fair, eat the loss out of your own pocket, and effectively pay the venue for the privilege of selling your own merchandise. And for Kanonenfieber, in this case, neither option was acceptable. So they went public with it. They called out the extortionate terms that were presented by the venue in Milan. They explicitly explained all of their fans why the economics simply didn't work anymore, and they refused to pass on predatory corporate markups to the fans who actually support them. Basically, they decided they would rather take the financial loss completely and sell to their fans online instead of participating in this system. And they are not the only ones, by the way. It's just an example that has blown up, and that's why I'm also using it. The American metalcore band Silent Planet has faced almost identically the same situation. Their response? Literally started throwing free t-shirts from the stage to the crowd. And what happened in Milan is not an isolated problem. It's kind of a window into a global industry disease that's going on. When venues stop viewing the merchant table as an artist's lifeline, which it is, but as a secondary revenue stream to squeeze for their own profit margins, they force international bands to skip entire cities, hell, sometimes entire countries, because the financial risk of crossing a border is just not worth it anymore. So, some of the bands have already proved that we don't have to stay silent about this, basically. But for me, it raises a much bigger question. How much longer can touring actually survive under these rules?